What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. We've got a great episode lined up for you today. We have 3 episodes for you total this week. Again, we are overloading you with draft content, off-season content, free agent content, Radio Row content. So for that, you're welcome. And we thank you for being with us episode after episode after episode. We had a busy week last week in New Orleans. It's busy again here and now. And this week, you're going to want to hang with us all the way through because we have the Hall of Famer, Kurt Warner, back on with us once again. He joined us midseason to tell us just how much he liked Drake Maye's game and just how much he really didn't like the Patriots' offense and how it was or was not setting Drake Maye up for success. Well, now that Drake Maye's rookie season has fully been submitted, what does Kurt Warner think of the Patriots franchise quarterback? Now, you're really going to like to hear what he has to say. You're also going to like to hear what he has to say about the match between Drake Maye and Josh McDaniels and just how much easier life might be for Drake Maye moving forward now that he'll be paired with that particular offensive coordinator. We're also going to get to our friend, Field Yates of ESPN. He has a new mock draft out. We'll talk about what the Patriots do there, what they maybe should have done, and some potential other options based on how the first 3 picks of the draft play out before New England selects. I want to point out one element of Dane Brugler's top 100. He has a new top 100 out on The Athletic. Again, another friend of the podcast. We love supporting our buddies' work and Field. Dane, 2 of the best in the business when it comes to covering the draft. So we'll get to Dane Brugler's top 100 and a name we haven't been talking about enough to this point in the pre-draft process, in my opinion. Then we're going to do just one more quick takeaway from Eagles-Chiefs. I do want to just point out the importance of the draft, and you just match these things up. Easy to see in some ways why the Eagles were able to pull away the way they did in Super Bowl 59. Then we've got a conversation with Brandon Bolden. So we're doubling you up on conversations once again. We've got Kurt Warner, and we've got Brandon Bolden, who gives us great insight not only into his former offensive coordinator, former head coach in Vegas, Josh McDaniels, and just how complicated that offense can be, but he's also going to tell you about his take on Bill Belichick moving to the college game, his take on Mike Vrabel taking over for the Patriots, because Brandon Bolden, all kinds of contacts in the league, being in the league as long as he was. And he talks about Mike Vrabel as one of Bill Belichick's kids. It's going to make sense. I promise. Great conversation with Brandon Bolden. But let's kick things off with Kurt Warner. Here's Kurt. Thrilled now to have with us on the Next Pats podcast, once again, friend of the podcast, Kurt Warner, Hall of Fame quarterback. Kurt Warner. Kurt, thanks for being with us, man.
You got it. Good to see you.
This is a busy week. It's a lot of fun this week, even for us as Patriots followers. Patriots might be as far away from this game as any team in the NFL, Kurt, but we still do get to talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady's doing the color commentary, and Tom Brady, obviously, with his 7 rings, is always part of the conversation when Patrick Mahomes is involved. And so we've been asking a lot of people this week, but you are at the top of the list when it comes to perspective on this conversation. If you had one game you had to win, and you had the option of Tom in his prime or Patrick Mahomes in his prime, who are you going with?
I'm going to win with either of them. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, I think, when you look back at Tom's career, what I always thought Tom was the greatest at was playing in the moments. Like, in the big moments, Tom always made the play. He was always that guy under pressure where other guys might shrink back under pressure, that was always had that consistent greatness. I think that's the same thing that represents Patrick Mahomes. In the moment, when you need a play made, he always seems to make the right play. And so, I mean, again, maybe after this weekend, if Patrick's able to kind of, maybe the 2 greatest quarterback winners we've ever seen in our game. And so, I'll take either of them. You can blindfold me and just give me either one, and I'm feeling really good going into the big game.
Pin the tail on the quarterback.
Right.
You're fine.
Exactly.
Either way. You do such a great job teaching the game on your site, QBconfidential.com. Kurt, if you haven't seen it, go check it out for our viewers on YouTube, our listeners as well. Had some phenomenal Drake Maye breakdowns on your site. I'm curious, now that we're through a full season of Drake Maye and the Drake Maye experience, what do you think his ceiling might be? And then I want to ask you a little bit about Josh McDaniels in the offense. But first, Drake specifically, what kind of player are the Patriots and their fans looking at the near future?
I hate to use the word ceiling because I don't think we know anybody's ceiling until they get there, until they show us what their ceiling is. Just talking about Tom Brady, I don't know if he's hit his ceiling yet. And that was the beautiful thing about Tom, was that every year he got better and he got better and he got better. And I think that's what the great ones do, is they continually find ways to evolve and find, oh, I need to be better here, so I'm going to work on that. I need to be better here. And I tell you what, I was so impressed with Drake. After watching him in college and seeing some of the deficiencies, whether that was technical deficiencies or, holding on to the football too, some of those things I thought, it may take him a little bit of time to get there. When he finally got his chance to start in the NFL, I thought he was incredibly impressive in terms of his technique was better. He was accurate with the football. He got the football out. All the things that I wondered if he could do right away in the NFL, he showed me he could do. There were some issues with the pieces and the offense and the continuity and all of those things, but I thought he played some really, really good football. There's a couple games that he played where I thought, if I broke down all the quarterback play of rookies this year, there's a couple games that he was right there at the top, even though maybe not through the course of the whole season, but there were moments. So I'm really excited to see where he goes from here now that he's got Josh in his corner. I think it's going to be a really, really good match based on what I saw Drake do last year.
When you think of the Josh McDaniels offense, I know a lot of people at home think of the Tom Brady offense and playing from the pocket and diagnosing from there. But how do you think Josh might be able to mold what he does well with what Drake does well?
I think he's always going to give Drake options. The one thing that we would talk about with Tom a lot was, they would play a little bit more small ball. They weren't this throw it down the field all the time. I mean, obviously when they had Randy and stuff, but a lot of their offenses were, kind of pick you apart and, and take what the defense gives you, and giving Tom easy options more often than I think Drake had this year. And so that's one thing that I think Josh will do a great job of, is I'm going to give you chances to just complete balls and move the chains and not have to make the big throw or the big run all the time to do things. I think he's great at scheming. Now, when he was there with Tom, a lot of it was inside out. Had the tight ends, they had Gronk, and they did a lot of things inside out. It'll be interesting to see how they're built moving forward, and if that's how they continue to play, or if they adjust and become more outside in based on playmakers. But always did a great job of giving Tom options. Hey, come up. If you don't like this, we're going to check to that, and we're going to have options. And so I think Josh will be great at teaching Drake the game and giving him options to be able to get into the best play imaginable. So it can be a little bit easier on Drake this year than I thought it was last year.
If you're a quarterback and you're quarterbacking a team that is clearly in the middle of a rebuild, Kurt, and you're in those Drake Maye shoes right now, what are you hoping that the team does to help you be better at your job? Is it build through the trenches, get you some big, strong dudes to protect you? Is it give you some weapons on the outside to help you more in that regard? What are you looking for if you're a quarterback?
I think the easy answer is always, well, give me some shiny toys on the outside that can win in every situation. And then obviously you'd love to have, say, give me a great offensive line too. But so often we just look at it and go, well, just build up the offense for me. But again, we can go back to Tom Brady. I think the beautiful thing about that Patriots dynasty was Tom was obviously great, but they always had great defenses too. Like, he always had a top 10 defense when he was playing. Like, you had things you could fall back on. And to me as a quarterback, that's what you always want, is you want the team to go, build the team around me so I don't have to do everything, especially in the early phases. So as much as I would like to say, hey, yeah, give me a great offensive line, give me some great shiny weapons, I would say go out and do what you think this team needs to do to be competitive every time out, so I can just add to being on a really, really good football team. Because I think it's always hard to put the ball in the quarterback's hands every week and say, go win it for us, go win it for us, go win it for us, especially in those early stages when you're a young quarterback. So that, to me, I think is the right answer. As much as, I played with a lot of, fun players on the outside. I felt I could carry a team, so I like to build it that way. I just think the bottom line is build a good team around me. That's what I want you to do, because I know how talented I am. If I have a good team around me, we're going to win, and I think that's the approach you have to take.
You played with some unbelievable weapons on the outside. We talked, I think, the last time you were on our podcast about how you helped make them great and vice versa. You also played with a great running back in Marshall Faulk, and I'm sure you felt good about, at times, even though you wanted the ball in your hands, handing it off to that guy and helping dictate the pace of a game. How critical do you think it'll be for Drake Maye, especially playing in the Northeast, or it can be difficult to throw the football, especially late in the season, to get maybe that part of their offense down and make sure that that is something that can really be efficient and impactful week to week, just having that running game, because they really didn't have it at all this past year, Kurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's so nice to know, like, as you said, when we got going, greatest show on turf, it was like, man, I want to go out and throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns every game. But I tell you what, it was such a blessing at times to hand the football off and go, oh, Marshall went for 200 today. I had to throw for 120 yards, and we could win football games. So, to me, it's such a blessing to know you can win different ways. Like I said, there's so much pressure. When I was in Arizona, I didn't feel like we had a great team, even though we went to the Super Bowl that one year. So much I felt like was that expectation, like, Kurt, you have to – if you don't play well, you're not going to win. If you don't play well – and that is a tough place to play. I mean, even being a veteran, even being a guy that been to some Super Bowls and won MVP, like, that's a tough place to be every single week, and it starts to pull a little bit of the joy away from you because you're like, man, I didn't play well enough for us to win again this week. And so finding those other ways to win, a running game, obviously, a great defense. Hey, you hold somebody under 20 points, we'll have a chance every single week. Those are great things to take the pressure and that expectation off of a young quarterback, especially a young number 1 draft pick.
Now they have a defensive coach, a guy who was really reliant on the run game when he was in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel, and so maybe Drake Maye gets the help that he needs in that regard with Vrabel. Can we play a little game before we let you go here, Kurt?
Sure.
Let's have a little fun here.
All
we
right.
are in New Orleans, after all.
So your pot of gumbo?
This is our jumbo portion of the program here. There's a little ladle inside the pot here, Kurt. You're going to ladle out a football. This is our football version of gumbo here. The football's going to have –
Is that okay?
That's okay. Pick one.
Okay.
Pick one. We're going to have a number on the football, and then I'm going to ask you sort of an off-the-board kind of question. These aren't – some of them might be football-related,
Okay.
but a lot of them aren't. What number did you end up with there, Kurt?
30.
Okay. Football number 30 is best thing you've eaten the last 5 days. That's a dangerous question when we're here in New Orleans. I've eaten a lot, and it's been good, but it's been also a little embarrassing, the number of calories I think I've consumed over the course of the last 5 days.
I had some shrimp Creole last night, and it was delicious. A little bit spicy over at Drago's. It was good.
Drago's, everybody actually raves about Drago's. I think we're going to have to get over there. Okay, Shrimp Creole for the people at home. If you're in New Orleans, go check it out, Drago's Shrimp Creole. Kurt Warner approved. Kurt, thank you so much for being with us here. This was
Thanks
great.
for having me, as always.
Great stuff there from Kurt Warner. Really appreciate his time every time he's able to join us on Next Pats. Just about every single year we're able to meet up with him on Radio Row, and he always is just doling out such great information and such great insight. I love listening to him talk about just how incredibly impressive he thought Drake Maye was in his rookie year, and that is high praise from somebody who is not always willing to offer it, because you have to do something significant in order to impress Kurt Warner, especially playing at that position. And I love hearing him talk about Josh McDaniels giving Drake Maye options. That is something that Kurt is huge on. I know, not only based on his analysis of Patriots quarterbacks in the past, but other quarterbacks in the league. He'll break down the film on his website or on NFL Network. QBconfidential.com is where he's doing a lot of those more in-depth X's and O's types of breakdowns. And you'll hear him constantly point out, where is his answer? Where is his option here? Where is his hot? He's faced with a situation here, and he's not being given the tools he needs to succeed based on this situation. I.e., you're a quarterback, blitz is coming off the edge, and yet you don't have the tools at your disposal to be able to adjust, be able to change a route, change a protection in order to take that blitz out of the equation in terms of possible threats and hit the defense where it ain't. It happens more than you would think at the professional level, and Kurt loves calling it out. Let's call for what it is. He'll call it out, and he'll criticize offensive coordinators. He'll criticize the way things are being taught. And I love that he feels so strongly about those things at times, because you don't think of Kurt Warner as a bomb lobber, and he's not. But he is opinionated. And when he saw the Patriots offense last year, he felt it was, if you go back and listen to our conversation, one of two things. Either it was poorly structured by the coaching staff, or it was not being taught properly. I guess as sort of a secondary option to that second option, you could always leave open or leave for room the possibility that the players just simply can't pick it up, which is a completely different story, and that gets back to personnel acquisition and pre-draft evaluation and all that sort of stuff. But when he was talking with us about spacing and receivers understanding routes and footwork being tied to the routes and, answers being there for Drake Maye when he gets to the top of his drop, he wasn't seeing that consistently enough. It sounds like he's expecting to see much more of that when Josh McDaniels takes over as offensive coordinator for the Patriots. Let's get to our Field Yates mock draft, shall we? Because he has an interesting scenario for the Patriots in particular, where both Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter go off the board 1-2 to the Titans and Browns. Then you have Cam Ward, who goes off the board number 3 to the quarterback-needy Giants. Now, there's still a potential first-round quarterback, consensus, I would say, first-round quarterback on the board in Shedeur Sanders when the Patriots are on the clock. So what do? Do they try to trade out? Boy, the evaluations on Shedeur are all over the map. You just look at Daniel Jeremiah, for instance, his top 50. He's right outside the top 10. When you look at Dane Brugler's top 100, he's right at the bottom of the first round-ish, 25-ish or so in terms of overall player talents in this draft. And so is that big trade going to be there for the Patriots? I'm not sure it is. Even with Tom Brady there at 6, maybe wanting to move up for a quarterback, it's just a couple of slots. So even if he is he going to be willing to give up a haul? Is he going to be willing to give up, more than, for instance, just this year's second rounder? Maybe for the Patriots, that would be enough for them to make a deal. But again, and when quarterbacks are on the board and quarterbacks are involved in some of these trades, the trade charts kind of go out the window, and there's a premium placed on those. But there's the old Jimmy Johnson trade chart, which still gets used, like it or not. You think all of these organizations are really on top of their stuff when it comes to modernizing their options. The Jimmy Johnson trade chart is still readily used and available for these front offices on draft day. It's only a 200-point difference between where the Patriots are at number 4 overall and where the Raiders are at number 6 overall. So that's really, again, if you're just going off the trade chart, that really would be worth a third-round pick. Now, again, it's a quarterback, and so maybe if you're the Patriots, you're in a position where you feel like you can demand a second. And that, to me, would be worth talking about. Because if they're coming up for a quarterback, now you're looking at Jacksonville. Jacksonville could go with Mason Graham. They could go with Will Campbell. They could go with any number of players that the Patriots would find usable as well. But odds are the difference between the player that the Jaguars are getting at 5 and the Patriots are getting at 6, if they were to trade down, not all that different. And if you can pick up a second rounder in the process where, positions like defensive tackle, edge defender, tight end, if you pass on one of those and you want to be able to make sure that you get one in the second round, maybe that's something you can do. Maybe there's a tackle who gets to the top of the second round where, if you really feel like you want to take Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan, just because you think he's that much better than everybody else available. Or you do want to take Mason Graham because you're Mike Vrabel, and damn it, you're going to build through the trenches, and you don't care, offensive line, defensive line, Mason Graham's a player, man. And so we're going to take him at 6. But we still have a real hole on the offensive line, and we weren't able to address all the spots we needed to in free agency. Well, does Ariante Ursary from Minnesota, large human being, 6'6", 340, 330-ish pounds, is he there at the top of the second round for you to take? And then is there another second rounder where, you're looking at maybe the receiver position, or maybe you are looking at tight end, maybe you're even looking to package those picks together and move up back into the first round. And maybe you can address one of your needs there. That's the type of creativity I think the Patriots should be approaching this draft with, because while the elite high-end blue-chip talent might not be there, it does look like there is some depth at some other positions. And so I'm not saying that you're going to get the same player at 6 or 4 as you would at, wherever they are in the second round, 38 or 37 if they were able to get Vegas' second round pick in a trade down in the first round. Like, I'm not saying that, but you might be able to get a quality player, and might be the same kind of quality player that you would get in this year's draft in the middle of the first round, because again, the high-end talent, the super high-end blue chip guys just aren't there. So it's just something worth considering. Being creative, maybe being willing to move back in the scenario that Field Yates paints for us. I just would find that really fascinating to know how the Patriots look at it. Again, Are you trading out of the opportunity to get one of those quote-unquote blue-chip guys? If you think Mason Graham is that guy, if you think Will Campbell is clearly far and away the best tackle in this year's draft, if you don't feel that way, then you're willing to move back. And I wonder if Mike Vrabel feels that way, given some of the intel that he has already on this year's draft class. How about Dane Brugler's top 100? There's a reason I want to bring this up. I mentioned Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 earlier. Dane Brugler's top 100. They both have one player in particular who I think we really need to be considering for the Patriots. Maybe not at 4, but maybe in that kind of trade down that we were just discussing, where you still end up in the top 10, especially if you want to build through the trenches, especially if you want some pass rush help. And Abdul Carter isn't available to you. If he goes off the board 1 overall, then what do? Maybe Mason Graham's that guy from the interior. But let's look at what Dane Brugler and Daniel Jeremiah have to say about one player from Georgia. So again, should be on the tips of our tongues when it comes to draft discussion, right? Top 10 player out of Georgia. I mean, this guy, is he a top 10 player, though? If you're doing the Pro Football Focus mock drafts, I can tell you, they don't have him anywhere near the top 10. And I don't know why, because Daniel Jeremiah has this player at 6 overall, and Dane Brugler has him 3 overall, behind only Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. And it's Jalon Walker, 6'2", 245 pounds, played off the ball linebacker at Georgia, played on the end of the line of scrimmage, and that's where both Jeremiah and Brugler see him playing at the NFL level. Brugler says he's outstanding in space. Brugler says he's an outstanding space athlete. I love that, space athlete. Because of his long, rangy frame as well as his burst, change of direction, and closing speed. He has the versatile skill set to play man up against backs and tight ends or put his hand on the ground and create pressure off the edge. Daniel Jeremiah, meanwhile, says he's a compact, powerful defender with length and explosiveness. Played both on the ball and off in the Georgia defensive scheme, but he's at his best on the edge. As a pass rusher, he can move with pure speed, power, and an explosive counter move. He's also a weapon when used to spy the quarterback. Not insignificant, considering you play in a division with Josh Allen. Jeremiah goes on to say he can mirror the quarterback's movement before closing the space in a hurry. He dominated in the Bulldogs' first meeting against Texas during 2024. He's a firm edge setter against the run. How does Mike Vrabel not fall in love with this guy? When he's stacked off the ball, he's a touch late to key/diagnose, but he can attack and take on blocks or scrape over the top for tackles. Outstanding change of direction, quickness, and space. Overall, Walker is a tone setter on defense, and Georgia coaches rave about his makeup and leadership. Given what we know about Mike Vrabel, should we not be considering this guy at 4 overall? Forget the trade down. He plays a premium position. He's coming from a premium program. Outstanding makeup and leadership. Those are the kinds of guys you talk about: accountability, dependability, the things that Mike Vrabel's really going to need to see out of any player that he invests highly in, whether it's free agency or the draft. I just think that's how he's going to want to set up his program. How are we not talking about Jaylen Walker? I think we need to start doing that. So, versatile. Sounds a little like Vrabel, doesn't he? I know Vrabel was at his best off the edge too, but he could play off the ball if he needed to. He was smart enough to do that. Take on a variety of different responsibilities. Maybe make that front 7 scheme versatile, just by adding one player into the mix. Really find that name interesting in terms of being a match for the New England Patriots. Okay, last thing, because I do just want to point this out as a draft and roster building type of podcast, and we're still fresh off the Super Bowl. We did our Christian Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones episode of Next Pats immediately after the Super Bowl. We talked about building through the trenches, and I think that's critical, and I think the weakness that the Chiefs experienced on the offensive line was really exposed by a good, not great, and maybe good isn't doing it justice, but I think they're closer to good than they are great, the Eagles front. Again, I mentioned we got a bunch of Philly fans in here, and, even if you look at the stats, they were right in the middle of the pack in terms of sacks this year. Jalen Carter is a really good player. Nolan Smith's a really good player. Josh Sweat had the game of his life in the Super Bowl, and boy, is he going to get paid. We had him on our list of 5 players for the Patriots to attack this offseason. He might have just priced himself out. As much money as the Patriots have to play with, if they're doing some big game hunting on the offensive line or at receiver, I don't know if they're going to have enough left over for Josh Sweat. But look at these drafts. If you look at the Chiefs in their drafts the last few years, it's been bleak. Yes, they got Xavier Worthy in the first round, and he looks like a real player. But they missed, and hand up, I missed too, on Kingsley Suamataia. I thought the Patriots should draft him. I still think there's the potential that he turns into a player. He's really young, but boy, he gave them nothing. You look at the rest of that draft, they got nothing out of the 2024 draft outside of Xavier Worthy. They got nothing from the 2023 draft. Rashee Rice had a good year a couple years ago, not on the field. So you're getting nothing from Felix Inaduki Uzoma, who was their 31st overall pick in 2023. Zero. 2022, much better. Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis in the first round. That's nice job. Leo Chanel in the third round. So you got Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round. So that's a good draft, but that's one for now you're 1 for 3 in the last 3 drafts. You go back even further. 2020 was a nice draft for them, but they're not able to, in part because they're paying other people, but they're not able to keep somebody like L'Jarius Sneed, who they hit on in the 4th round. So it's not that they're completely whiffing on some of these classes, but they've got nobody from that draft. Willie Gay has been a contributing player for them and certainly has had his moments. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, though, first-round pick, handful of years ago. Not giving you anything. Not even with the team. In 2021, they did get Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, the pride of Leominster, Mass, Noah Gray, tight end. So that's a draft where you hit as well, but you're looking at some of the premium positions over the course of the last few years here, and it's nice to get 2 interior offensive linemen in one draft, no question. It's nice to get a middle linebacker in that draft too. But boy, you look at it, since 2020, they've gotten 1 pass rusher, George Karlaftis. They've got 1 corner, Trent McDuffie, who's still contributing. They got 1 receiver, Xavier Worthy. There's just not the volume of players that you need to be able to sustain greatness. And it's really, really hard. You're picking at the bottom of the first round. But the Eagles, I think when you flip it over, the Eagles on the other side, and we talked about this on the Patriots Talk podcast recently. Go back and listen to our last episode if you haven't already. Tom had a nice conversation with Mike Sando as well. They really knocked it out of the park on 5 of their last 7 drafts. And so as much as the trenches decided that one particular game, Super Bowl 59 might have been decided well before that game, like years before that game, just based on the number of drafts where the Eagles hit. You can go all the way back to 2018. No first-round pick, but 4 players contributing to a Super Bowl winner. Dallas Goedert, Avonte Maddox, Josh Sweat, Jordan Mailata, 7th-round pick. Unbelievable draft. And then they hit a little bit of a rough patch 2 years in a row. 2019, Andre Dillard in the first round, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Miles Sanders in the second round. Woof. 2020, Jalen Reagor in the first round. Nothing in rounds 3 through 7, really. They did get a quarterback in the second round. So even that's a quote, I'm calling that a quote-unquote miss. It's really not. They got their quarterback. So, call it 6 out of the last 7 drafts. If you want. It's hard for me to say they knocked it out of the park there. They passed on Justin Jefferson to take Jalen Reagor 1 pick before. That's a tough one to swallow. And they really got nothing after Hurts. But then 2021, it's Devontae Smith, it's Landon Dickerson, it's Milton Williams. 2022, it's Jordan Davis, Cam Jurgens, Nakobe Dean. 2023, it's Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Tyler Steen, who's sort of their super sub on the offensive line. Moro Ajomo, who's a key player up front for them in the 7th round. And then this past year, it's Quinyon Mitchell, it's Cooper DeJean, Jalix Hunt. They're getting 3, 4, 5 contributors from some of these draft classes. And so they've outdrafted the Chiefs. The Chiefs have had their hits too, but they have clearly outdrafted the Chiefs over the course of the last several years. And that's as good a reason as any that they end up being your Super Bowl champions. All right, let's get to our final conversation of the podcast here. It's Brandon Bolden. Great stuff on playing for Josh McDaniels and code words and just how much the offense grew under McDaniels. Not everything is going to be thrown at Drake Maye right away, but he has the ability to add volume and add and add. Not only over years' time, but maybe over the course of a given season. If he feels like he has the players who can handle it, specifically the quarterback who can handle it, and Drake Maye feels as though, he's going to be able to adapt to this offense relatively quickly, and I believe him. Because I do think he's a smart kid. And so I think he's going to be able to absorb a lot of what Josh McDaniels gives him. Can the offensive line? Can the receivers? Can the backs? That might be a different story. But year to year, you're going to see growth with Josh McDaniels running the show here, and I think from week to week, you're going to see growth as well. You should. And that's why it's really important this offseason that they pick up smart players. And you're going to hear Brandon Bolden talk about that. So, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, all big-name coaches in this area. Brandon Bolden's got insight on all of them. Here's our conversation with Brandon. Thrilled to have with us now on the Next Pats podcast, Brandon Bolden. Patriots great, Raiders great as well. Josh McDaniels' pupil for many years. So we're going to talk to you about some Josh.
Yeah.
First, I have to talk to you about your former head coach, though. Bill Belichick, Brandon, is now in the college ranks. I'm going to ask you to go back in time, put yourself in a young Brandon Bolden, a 17-year-old Brandon Bolden's shoes, and tell me what it would be like, you think, to be recruited by the great Bill Belichick.
That's a scary thought. just because, like, when I was in high school, coaches would, like, come and watch us practice. Like, the biggest one we had Nick Saban. He was just fresh at Alabama. And he came to practice, and it was funny to see everybody, like, freeze up. And I was like, hey, get in the lines while I do drills. And so those guys out there, one-hand catches, just, complete clowning. But then it's Bill Belichick, so it's like, I don't think we would have that same type of clearance. Like, I know if my coach at that time, we probably would have lined up and did Oklahoma drill just because. It was like, it's Bill's here, we're going to show off and everything else. But as a kid, seeing Bill Belichick, like, the Bill Belichick just walk through your hallway at school or just come catch you in the cafeteria, like, hey, I need to talk to you. Or, hey, I need to talk to you for a second.
Hey, yeah, you can go ahead and put down the French toast sticks.
So I can only imagine just how terrifying that would be. But the good side that I see about Bill going into college, you'll have more college players coming into the NFL knowing more football than, like, I felt like I learned so much about Bill, I didn't know anything about the NFL or football, period, until I got to Bill Belichick.
It does feel like he's probably going to bring a pro program
Yes.
to North Carolina. Do you think he'll succeed? Do you think his style will succeed with kids, Brandon? I mean, you know what that style is like.
Yeah.
My guess is it's going to have to change a little bit. What do you think?
See, that's the thing about Bill. He's going to change a little bit, but his biggest thing is he's going to find guys who wants to be in that program. So he's going to run the program how he see fit. And if you don't want to be there, that's what the transfer portal is for. And I can put money, that's what he's going to tell any kid that says, oh, I have a problem with how we're doing this. Go click on the transfer portal, and you'll find out that way. But I think it's going to take him a year, maybe two. We all know Bill works fast. He does not like to lose. And so he's going to go in there and whip it into shape quickly.
What do you think of what happened with the Patriots this past season? You know Gerard Mayo, you're teammates with Gerard Mayo.
Yeah.
One and done, unfortunately for him and for that staff. The huge turnover now with Mike Vrabel in as head coach. Did you feel like they did Gerard wrong in any way by only keeping him for a year?
I'm going to say I don't think they gave him a fair chance. He kind of walked into a situation, like, no offense, they had a bad season the year before. He's kind of coming in. He's got to do not only maintenance but also bringing in his type of, like, what he wants to bring as a coach. And to kind of just give all the players there, the staff there, the supporting staff, you guys as well, just to kind of give it 1 year of that, I don't think that's fair for not only Mayo but the players as well. But, I don't know. And the crazy thing is I think it would have been something to see next year or the year after. But, best of luck to him, whatever next. And the coaching staff I thought was star-studded coaching staff because they're all former teammates of mine. And so I thought that was going to be – I expected a lot. I watched. I made phone calls. Me and Marcus Jones, we still talk every blue moon. Me and Ramondre, the same one thing. And try to keep in touch. Keep those guys ask them how they're doing and stuff like that because, it sucks going through a losing season.
Oh, no question. And you're right. Like, guys like, not only Mayo, but Dante Hightower,
right.
Matthew Slater.
Yeah.
Like, those are really smart football minds,
Yes.
guys that relate well to teammates, leaders. You would think that, if given more time, they could really find their footing as coaches and work their way up through that profession if they really wanted to. I do want to ask you, because you guys played Mike Vrabel's Titans when you were with the Patriots. What kinds of teams were those? Like, what should we expect as Patriots followers will be the adjectives we'll be using to describe a Mike Vrabel coached team? As
everybody has called me my entire career, one of Bill's kids. Is we're never going to be as good as our parents, but we're going to show you a lot of similarities for our parents. And that's kind of what you're going to see. Even talking to some of his former players that were in Tennessee with him, that's the main thing they said. It was like, ask questions about Bill. It was like, oh, yeah, Vrabel did that same thing. And we talked about this and talked about that. So I expect to see a lot of similarity to what Bill used to do and what he used to bring. I think you're going to get a lot more fired up. Your interviews are going to be fun now. It's not just talking to a wall anymore. But other than that, I from what I understand, Vrabel is a great coach. He was a hell of a player. He used to come visit early in my career, and then to play against him as a player coach is awesome too, because he's out there talking trash just like everybody else. So it was great. I love Vrabel.
It was a lot of fun to watch. Some of the joint practices I can remember, not only between Patriots and Titans, but Patriots and Texans back in the day, and you would see Brady and Vrabel going at it. Yeah, pretty impressive stuff. I want to ask about Josh McDaniels. A lot of experience with him.
Yeah.
He's back in New England now. What do you think makes this hire a good one for the Patriots moving forward?
Honestly, Drake Maye. It is a great one for him. I think you're going to see a big jump from last year to this year. Josh is, like I said, he's one of Bill's kids. He's an offensive genius. And just to think that he was the one who coached Tom through all those Super Bowls and stuff, and see him be able to shape a young mind. I mean, look what he did with Mac. And so, give the guy a chance and see how far he can go. I'm excited for him. I was a Drake Maye fan even for the draft, so I'm excited for him to get Josh.
Why do you think it didn't work in Vegas for Josh? You were obviously there with him. For people at home that maybe didn't know, you were at the Raiders right after the Patriots. So why did it not work?
I don't want to blame it on culture, because the Raiders had their own culture, and it was kind of easy to understand what the former players, what the head office was kind of looking for. And things just didn't pan out. We lost a lot of key players early, and we really couldn't find anybody to kind of step up or find anybody to kind of go into those roles after those players went down. So it was kind of, hard, and I felt bad for Josh because we had so many things drawn up. We had so many things to go over, and we really didn't get to put our best foot forward every time. And, it's unfortunate, but love him, great dude. I wouldn't had the career I had without him, so that's my guy.
Well, he loved you because I can remember him talking about just how dependable you were, and somebody went down, they know they could put you in. You could get starter reps at running back, even if you hadn't practiced that kind of role during the week, and they were going to get good play out of you. How difficult is it an offense to pick up, though, Brandon? How smart are the players who are coming into this locker room? If there's real turnover, right? And I think there will be. If there's real turnover, how smart are these guys going to have to be to pick up what Josh has given them?
Oh, it's going to have to be very smart. When I first got there, our code words might have been 7 or 8 code words. By the time I left New England, in my little black notebook I had 14 pages of code words. And those code words as easy as wolf. Wolf could be gun tray right open, 37 gut. As simple as that sound, but that gives you, just wolf alone gives you the formation, where to play direction, and depending on if he gets wild with it, like Tom's favorite would be SoCo Wolf, which would mean to be on the second color. So in the cadence is white 80, white, the ball's getting snapped. So we get the entire play just off of one word sometimes, or 2 words. And so you're going to have to be quick with it. And because I remember Bill, he was like, you got the basics of the playbook. I suggest you study because we're about to add layers to it. And the playbook went from a pamphlet to a book in the overnight. And so I don't think he's going to jump off the porch and throw that book at those kids, but he's definitely going to go back into a simpler thing. And being around the league too and hearing other stories, Josh's offense isn't that difficult. Being in it, I guess that's biased of me to say, but then when you're hearing other people's, how their system goes from mic points and protections and offensive line calls, it can get pretty confusing. And if you've been stuck in one system for so long, you can mess that up. And I don't want to say that's what was happening in Las Vegas, but you could kind of see there was some type of disconnect with just how everything was kind of panning out. And we just didn't have enough time to kind of everybody get the full picture.
It does feel like he has the ability at least to simplify, right? Like with Mac in 2021, he probably wasn't giving Mac everything that he would have given Tom and that Tom Brady offense. So I would expect something similar will happen with Drake moving forward, that he can tweak it, he can adjust it so that a younger guy can pick it up and lead the offense the way he needs to.
100%.
I need to ask you about the American Cancer Society while you're here with us. What can you tell us about the American Cancer Society?
American Cancer Society is partnered up with the NFL during the crucial catch, kind of just trying to get to everybody to have the conversation. I was diagnosed with cancer survivor myself, and the biggest thing for me was I would have got it a lot sooner if I would have did early screening. So that's why I'm partnered with the American Cancer Society to kind of have that conversation about early screening, getting everybody comfortable and able to have those conversations, because I was terrified. And playing for Bill, that was the last thing I wanted to tell Bill was I'm going to have to miss time because, I need some sick days. And but to my surprise, when I finally broke down and told him, he looked at me and he's like, whatever you need, the team, you have the full team support. And I had that. So had surgery, was back at practice, kind of just hanging out. Did that year in Miami and came back like nothing ever happened. So, shout out to Bill for sticking with me for that.
Incredible story, your ability to overcome what you overcame. Incredible career that you had winning Super Bowls. Fantastic to talk to you, Brandon. I want to ask you, before we let you go, to participate in our Jumbo Gumbo portion of the program. You're a Baton Rouge guy. This is a little different form of gumbo. This is a football form of gumbo. We're going to have you reach in with the ladle. Please don't go in with the hands. We don't need the germs getting into the rest of our gumbo there. You're going to ladle out a football.
I got two.
I'm going to ask you a question that's associated.
21. Here we go.
That's associated with number 21.
That should be easy if it's what I think it is.
What number? You're number 20?
I was 25 when I left.
Okay. Number 21. This is not football related, but it can be if you want it to be, because this question is favorite athlete on a team you didn't or don't root for. So your favorite athlete on a team that you don't root for.
Ooh.
I'll give you mine. Mine was Tim Duncan growing up. I loved Tim Duncan, the big fundamental. Is that embarrassing for me? Was that the most predictable thing ever?
No.
Slow guy from Boston who really appreciates Tim Duncan's game. But I didn't root for the Spurs, but I like Tim Duncan. Yeah.
No,
so what do you got?
Ooh, he's going to hate me for this. Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow didn't root for the Gators, but always rooted for Tim Tebow?
Yep.
What would you like so much about Tim Tebow?
When we made him cry in college, and that was kind of it. And it was like, you know what? I'm gonna cheer for this guy for the rest of his career. And then we ended up in New England together for one camp.
That's right.
And first thing, like we spoke, we shook hands, and I was like, I've always cheered for you. And I told him the same story, like, ever since you cried on national television over 1 point, and he turned red. But we were best friends after that. I can see him right now. We're just sitting there and hug it out. But yeah, Tim Tebow was one of those players. Like I hope he does well. So when he was in Denver with Josh, I was cheering for him.
There you go. Have you ever seen such a frenzy for a guy who was like a third or fourth string quarterback in training camp?
No.
That the media was insane. Yeah.
I remember just kind of standing on the sideline and everybody's cheering for him to get in. And he goes in and it's a run play and he comes right back out just like so Bill can make everybody shut up. That was like the funniest thing ever.
I'm sure Bill Belichick loved that.
You know it.
Oh, of course he did. Love talking to you, Brandon Bolden. It's great to see you, man. Thanks so much for being with us, buddy.
No problem.
All right, great stuff there from Brandon Bolden. Thanks so much to him. Thanks to Kurt Warner. Thanks to both of them for participating in our Jumbo Gumbo portion of the program. Hopefully you had some fun with that. We will be having sort of like a best of conversation with the Jumbo Gumbo stuff. We're going to be able to put that out for you very soon. We also have, I call them feats of strength, but a little bit of an athletic competition on Radio Row between yours truly and Tommy Karn. Gee, I wonder who came out on top as far as that's concerned. Yeah. I mean, no spoilers, but spoiler alert. I think you're really going to enjoy that too. Thanks to everyone who's listening. Apple Podcasts, again, we pleaded for questions on last episode here a little bit earlier this week. We're going to continue to rake those in, and we will answer those, let's say, next week. So if you get an Apple Podcast comment, easy for me to say, Apple Podcast comment or question into us, We'll read them here on the show. We'll answer to the best of our ability. If you're on YouTube watching, we love you. Thank you. We appreciate you. Continue to leave us some comments. I'll mix it up in there as I always try to do week after week after week. Even with us overloading you with podcasts, I'm going to try to keep up with all those and get back to as many of those as I can as well. We've got another episode coming at you on Friday, so make sure you stick around for that one, or keep an eye out at least for that one. You don't have to just linger on this channel between now and Friday. You've got things to do. We'll come back and check us out. We'll talk to you then.